Tactical nuke incoming!
Yes! All right, what's going on, fellas? This is gonna be take 2 of my intro because I am caffeinated as shit for this deadlift day. I'm fired up for my deadlift. Tired of not deadlifting 880. We're gonna fix that shit. We're gonna be training it at home. Kind of looking back at my training, I realized most of my best performances are at the gym in town with that little bit more external energy, better equipment, yada, yada, yada. But most of my training leading up to those high-level performances has happened here where there's no distractions, maybe a little bit lower energy environment, because if I can get it done here with just me and my dog, I can get it done anywhere. I don't need to rely on that external stuff. I can auto-regulate my training as needed. There's no distractions, so I can put thought into not just getting the work done, but what should I be doing to become better? What do I need to do to get better? I can think that to myself quite a bit more if there's no distractions. I'm not paying attention to what's going on around me. And I think just mixing up your training environment's good. Sometimes you can get kind of mentally stagnant, and all you need to do is switch your training environment, maybe from your home gym back to the gym in town. Maybe you start doing a day pass once a week for this session that you kind of want to restart. I think I mentioned James Hollingshead's talked about it. It's just something, a card you can play. I know not everybody has access to that, like that option of training at different gyms, but sometimes I think mixing it up can help you kind of mentally restart a session. If that session doesn't seem to be snowballing in the right direction, you're not gaining momentum in the way that you want. Man, I am cracked out. Should be a good deadlift day because of it, but damn. And then just a little tidbit, I think a lot of the, sometimes the little things I drop in my videos that people seem to get the most value from is just things that like, I break my coaching into 2 kind of work slots during the day. I do like a 4-hour sitting at my computer working yada, yada, yada before training, and then 3.5 to 4 hours after training. And sometimes I think a lot of my best videos happen when I kind of get a reoccurring question from my clients. I'm like, hey, a lot of people seem to be running into this. Maybe I should just throw this into a video. Lo and behold, that's my sample size. It turns out my clients are kind of reflective of a lot of my audience, which is intermediate to advanced lifters, somewhere in between. And one thing I was just talking to one of my clients about is, hey, don't be afraid to restart your training cycle. That doesn't mean that your training cycle was wasted. It's not like hard work is seldom wasted. It's not like those adaptations go away if we fail to express them at the end. If you're going into like your peaking phase or your heavy phase where you're gonna hit a new single or you're gonna test your single and you're not feeling confident that the work you've done has prepared you for a new single, you're signing yourself up for failure. Just roll into a new training cycle and you'll be even more prepared next time. Most of us just need to gain more muscle, so rolling back to that volume phase to start each block is always a good idea. It's not a shameful thing. You know, if I don't feel like I'm ready for a single, I don't try to force it, you know, and like kind of march my way into inevitably being upset. I just roll into a new training cycle because getting bigger is always a good idea. And then I'll build another training cycle, maybe make some changes from that last one, whether it's outside the gym stuff, inside the gym stuff. And then I'll be authentically confident coming into that next one of like, yeah, I'm now ready for a new PR. Man, I'm very thoroughly prepared. And I will generally postpone going into like a peaking phase or a training peak, not like a competition style peak, but a training peak or testing a single until I've done so much work that I'm very confident. There's no shame in restarting and plugging in more volume is always a good idea. It's usually that if you think maybe you should, the answer is probably you should. And that's something I've had to explain to my clients is like, hey man, are you feeling confident coming into this final 3 weeks of the 10-week training cycle? And they're like, not really, man. I had some distractions come up during my strength phase. You know, I had some travel, some family stuff. I'm not feeling like momentum's on my side. Well, we're not gonna march into inevitably you being frustrated. We're just gonna roll into a new training cycle. And by rolling into a new training cycle, we can get momentum on our side, and then we have 2 blocks worth of work on our side coming into that next max, so we can be really confident, man. I'm better than I was last time I did a peak, because I've had basically 2 training cycles worth of work. There's no shame in it. It's usually the good call.
All right, what's going on there, fellas? I have returned, tired out, and no longer cracked out. Rewatching that intro, good golly, I am sorry. I knew I was talking fast, kind of stuttering a little bit, little incoherent, but goddamn, I didn't realize it was that bad. This is what happens when you normally always have your 200 milligram caffeine pill, and then you splurge on a 300 milligram of caffeine energy drink. I think I had a rain for this workout once a week, just once a week for this high priority session while we're trying to get the deadlift up. That's kind of something I've always done is, okay, well, I'll use the cheap option most of the time. And then if I've got something I'm really kind of mentally prioritizing, I get a little tasty treat beforehand. So to start the session off here, it is a 5-round EMOM of these hanging knee to elbows. I'm actually quite a bit weaker on these than usual because I've been doing primarily those weighted front planks, which have been doing me really good. Back feels nice and sturdy. Midsection feels strong. But I've always liked to include these specifically once I can, the knee to elbow variety, because it kind of gives me better control of my like posterior pelvic tilt in my start position of my deadlift. Really, it just loosens up my lower back before my deadlifts because, as you guys have heard me say many times, I like to do my abs prior to deadlifting. A, that way they're not at the end where a lot of my clients skip them. B, it's a good way to kind of get your back warmed up. And C, I do find that getting a little bit of blood flow, a light pump to the abs is a really good way to kind of improve your proprioception on your brace, right? Because we want to be not just filling our stomach with air. We don't just want to be breathing into our belt, but we also want to create muscular rigidity. Like, everybody says, oh, well, brace like someone's going to punch you in the stomach, and then fill that with air, whether the belt is there or not. And I find that ability to kind of create that muscular tension to then breathe into a tense midsection rather than just kind of pushing outward indefinitely leads me to a lot less lower back fatigue on my pulls. So on the way up here, everything was feeling good. Did my usual little rows to warm up the upper back, a couple bottom half deadlifts to kind of work on staying in the legs. Didn't stay in the legs quite as well as I would have liked on my top set, but I also can't complain because it's a 20-pound PR on my all-time best triple. This session went goddamn well. I'm over the moon. Also did some RDLs just kind of get the hamstrings moving because sometimes my hamstrings are a little tight and it restricts me from getting into the start position that I'm aiming for. Today, we got moving pretty goddamn well. Training in the garage was the move. The session went by way faster. I was able to auto-regulate in a lot smarter way. It's not that I really am embarrassed to do lighter weights in the gym. It's more that I'm kind of distracted by so many things. I'm not thinking about what should I be doing. I'm focused on, hey, there's a lot of distractions. Let's get things done and stay intense and stay focused. I guess I don't have the mental resources to train as smart as I do at home, which often pays dividends as it did in my bench press prep. I feel like I managed my fatigue and, had a lot of boring sessions that you guys sat through where I would auto-regulate or stay lighter and do what needed to be done to be ready. So we're coming up on my top set here. Last warm-up felt a little heavy, so I knew I would need to get fired up. Even a double would be a PR here, but triple sounded really cool. So I will cut myself out for a second, leave you guys the audio because you guys like to hear the preamble before the lift, I guess. So I was over the moon there, as you could tell. Super stoked, huge PR. Would have been a double PR, 20 pounds on my best triple. I think more than 20 pounds since we've started this road to 880. Not exactly sure. I want to say maybe my best triple was like 710, 705, something like that. Not that I had really pushed for a maximal triple before, but then moving on to these, goddamn, I was really fatigued. You'll hear me kind of interject here. About part of it might be the difference in SSB, but mostly it's that big set of deadlifts that really gassed out my erectors. I opted out of my kind of endurance-focused down set on the deadlifts just to manage fatigue a little bit better. Normally, I would like to be doing pause deadlift as my down set to kind of auto-regulate the load downward, but also really prioritize staying in the legs, kind of feeling the weight still hanging in the quads rather than hanging off my erectors. But right now, that down set needs to be endurance focused, though we skipped it this week because pretty fried after that set. Here is me again chiming in.
Man, I cannot wait for this to be any kind of squat as my secondary squat variation. Mostly because my deadlift uses a lot of erectors. So the good mornings, while they're very helpful, they almost like in my head, I'm like, this is redundant. I should just do more deadlifting. And also in the past, just because of how I'm built, the long torso, the short legs, my leg strength has always been one of my strong suits, my pressing and my leg strength. Sometimes I was unable to display that in the form of a squat because my trunk was not strong enough to kind of show that strength. With that long torso comes a lot of demand on it, and I wasn't able to meet that demand, but the pure leg strength used to be really relative strength. So for the longest time, I've worked really hard more on my hinging and my deadlifting, and kind of checking in with myself. I'm like, man, my legs are no longer way ahead of the curve. I don't think by any means they're behind the curve, but that means I can kind of get back to training them really, really hard, more evenly with my deadlift at some point here. Like I said, even a belt squat on this session, I'd be stoked to just get in a little bit more squat pattern work and just get that pure leg squat pattern strength back up to being something that I'm like, yeah, that's pretty good for me. That's a strong suit. So looking forward to that, but we're not gonna be a ditz and change our shit randomly. We're gonna ride out the SSBs for a while longer, even if I had to auto-regulate like a motherfucker today. Part of that's fatigue, obviously, from the big PR triple. Part of that's also the camber on this Titan, which is just a knockoff of the Elite FDS. SSB is a little bit different than the Bells of Steel one I've been using. It just feels different. Probably more fatigue than it is the bar being different, but we're taking a easy 3x5 here to account for that, and then we're getting onto the rows and the hammy curls.
But yeah, as I was saying, would like my down sets on the deadlift right now to be probably pause beltless pulls, pausing like a centimeter off the floor, prioritizing breaking the floor with good positioning and also staying in the legs, maybe some double pauses, one right off the floor, one below the knee. Again, kind of checking in at that halfway point, giving myself a positional audit, doing a variation that's going to punish a poor position. But alas, we got to work on our endurance for this upcoming contest. And then after that, we'll probably move on to that more position-focused deadlift programming, more than just logging in rep PRs and volume-focused deadlift programming that led to me being really strong, but not the best deadlifter, not lifting as much as I could. So being a little bit more like quality conscious, not just what does the workout look like on paper conscious, because I think you can only focus on those quantitative qualities and you can get pretty strong, and then you're going to run into the upper ends of that kind of faulty technique that you haven't been working on, and it's damn tough to get over that kind of plateau. I've had a couple guys to come to me for coaching that have really kind of pushed to the upper ends of their really unthought out technique, and they're always frustrated because they're like, okay, well, clearly they hired me because they want to overcome a plateau, and it doesn't overcome that first block because we need to kind of repattern their lifts a little bit, take one step backwards to take two steps forward, because they've already tried kind of just using the hammer, jamming the square peg in the round hole, and just pushing for more volume because they understood early in their training. They're guys that train hard as shit. They're like, man, if I just attack my deadlifts and then my RDLs and then my rows and my hamstring curls and I rep PR those every week, I can get stronger. And that works for a long ass time. But then eventually you need to also take pride in kind of being clever, take pride in your technique to keep things moving forward. And that's a corner that Max and I definitely had to turn at one point when we were just like big logbook guys, big, just get jacked, put on a lot of muscle and you'll lift a lot of weight, and kind of understood that ordering of like, hey, if we're just crushing rep PRs on this reasonably organized workout, that should work forever. And then we ran into, hey, good form might not be a real thing from an injury risk perspective, debatably, but it absolutely is a real thing from a mechanical efficiency perspective. You know, there's different technical models that can work for different athletes, so there's no one size fits all, but there is definitely such a thing as bad technique that's going to maybe lead to rapid progression initially and then really slow progression when we have to kind of repattern it. And ideally, we put that thought in early and don't have to like heavily repattern someone's deadlift when they get stuck in the mid sevens. As always, if you guys like the video, I enjoy doing these quite a bit. Apparently, reminding you guys to like the video works wonders. So if you enjoyed the video, leave a like, leave a comment. I've been reading them all. I appreciate you guys as always, always tuning in. And then I also included this clip of me walking here because this is something I've been doing every time after this deadlift session. I drink my shake. I have some kind of simple carb. So right now it's a little bit of fat. I'm eating a bunch of Uncrustables because they're easy to put down. The reason we're going with a shake, not solid food here, is because I have no appetite after heavy lower sessions. It's not like an anabolic window thing, but it's been a while since I last ate. These sessions are long. I want to get that food down immediately, and then I hop on the treadmill for just a quick 10-minute cool down walk. And I find when I do this and I kind of focus on feeling my hip flexors stretch out, the next day my low back feels so much less fatigued just from my hips kind of not tightening up in response to the deadlift session. It doesn't need to be right after the session. I've done it later in the day. As long as before bed I put in a walk at like a moderate pace. I don't even jack up the incline because I'm not trying to get any cardio difficulty. I'm really just trying to get the hips moving. And I know the literature isn't really there behind cooldowns, but I can tell you that if I walk after my deadlift sessions, my back feels a million times better the next day. Thank you guys for watching as always.